Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the House of Law. So a few days ago, I was asked this question. Well, it's a situation actually. The girlfriend wants to break up with her boyfriend, but the boyfriend threatened her that he will spread her nude pictures all over the internet. Because of this, the girlfriend got scared and did not break up with him. Is there a crime? What's the crime committed? At first look, the crime can either be grave coercion or grave threats. Are they synonymous? Can they be used interchangeably? I'll tell you what exactly is the crime. Just watch till the end. So in this video, I will explain the difference between grave coercion and grave threats. Let's begin. By the way, I'd like to thank you, dear subscribers. We are a growing community of 3,000 plus and counting. Yay! Konti na lang, 1 million na. Jokes. Thank you for all your support. I'm happy to make these videos about the law and I hope they help you understand our laws better. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and don't skip the ads. Pangkape lang po. Baka naman. Grave coercion is defined and punished under Article 286 of the Revised Penal Code. The penalty is prisión correccional, which is imprisonment of 6 months and 1 day to 6 years, plus a fine not exceeding 6,000 pesos. According to the Supreme Court, the elements of grave coercion are. But before I continue, know that the language of the law is confusing, so I will try to simplify. First element is that a person is prevented by another from doing something not prohibited by law or compelled to do something against his will, be it right or wrong. In other words, a person is about to do something which is lawful, but he is prevented from doing that, or a person is forced to do something which he doesn't want, whether that which he is forced to do is lawful or not. For example, you want to go to work, but you are prevented from going to work, or you are forced to go to work against your will. Second element, that the prevention or compulsion is done by violence, threats, or intimidation. In other words, the person was prevented or forced by means of violence, threats, or intimidation. For example, you want to go to work, but you were prevented from going to work because you were pushed away from the door and the door was locked. Or you don't want to go to work, but you are forced to go to work because you are threatened with a knife. Like, sige, pag di ka pumasok sa trabaho, sasaksakin kita. Third element, that the person who restrains the will and liberty of another has no right to do so, or in other words, that the restraint is not made under authority of law or in the exercise of any lawful right. In other words, there is no legal justification or basis for preventing the person from doing that which he or she wants to do, or for forcing him to do what he or she doesn't want to do. These elements are found in the case of Alejandro versus Bernas, GR number 179243, September 7, 2011. Now let me share some examples from Supreme Court decisions. First example, there is grave coercion when a lessor, with the assistance of armed men, takes over the leased building and padlocks the gates in order to prevent the lessee from entering the property, as illustrated in Navarro versus Ombudsman, GR number 176291, December 4, 2009. But note, there is no grave coercion when a lessor cuts off the electricity in case the lessee fails to pay rent if there is a mutual agreement giving the lessor such power, as illustrated in the case of Barbasa versus Toquero, GR number 163898, December 23, 2008. Second example, there is grave coercion when a person stopped and kicked a tricycle and prevented the passenger from proceeding to her destination, as illustrated in Consulta versus People, GR number 179462, February 12, 2009. However, let's say it was a policeman who kicked the tricycle to stop a criminal from escaping. That is not grave coercion because the reason for the restraint was made under authority of the law. The restraint was to catch a criminal. Note that the underlying principle in grave coercion is that every person has free will. Any restraint or compulsion done through violence, threats, or intimidation of that free will is illegal and punishable by law, except if there is a valid and legal reason to restrain or compel the person. Okay, now let's look at grave threats. The crime of grave threats is defined and punished under Article 282 of the Revised Penal Code. The elements of grave threats are, again, let me try to simplify them as much as possible. First, that the offender threatens another person with the infliction upon the latter's person, honor, or property, or upon that of the latter's family of any wrong. In other words, a person makes a threat of a crime or a wrong against the person's life or health, honor, or property, or against the life or health, honor, or property of the person's family. For example, the threats of sasaksakin kita or itatapon ko yung cellphone mo. That's a threat against the health or property of a person. Second element, such wrong amounts to a crime. In other words, the act threatened to be done is a crime. So in my previous example, sasaksakin kita, that's the crime of physical injury or attempted or frustrated homicide or murder, as the case may be. Meanwhile, the threat of itatapon ko yung cellphone mo, that's the crime of malicious mischief, di ba? Now, the third element is such threat may or may not be accompanied by a condition. In other words, the act threatened may be for the sake of money or for the victim to do something in exchange of that threat, or there could be nothing expected in return. You can find these elements in the resolution of the Supreme Court in Navea versus People, GR number 233818, September 2, 2020. Now, the penalty of grave threats shall be as follows. Now, again, that the law is confusing, so I will first state the law and try to simplify it. The first penalty is the penalty next lower in degree than that prescribed by law for the crime he threatened to commit, if the offender shall have made the threat demanding money or imposing any other condition, even though not unlawful, and said offender shall have attained his purpose. If the offender shall not have attained his purpose, the penalty lower by 2 degrees shall be imposed. In other words, if the threat made is a crime and there is extortion, and the accused succeeded in getting the money or any other condition, then the penalty is that which is lower in degree prescribed for the crime threatened. But if the accused did not get what he wanted from the victim, then the penalty lower by 2 degrees shall be imposed. For example, bigyan mo ako ng 100,000 pesos kung hindi bubugbugin ko ang kapatid mo. And because of that, the victim gave 100,000 pesos. Let's say here the crime threatened is serious physical injuries, and the imposable penalty is prisión correccional. In grave threats with extortion, the imposable penalty would be the penalty 1 or 2 degrees lower. So in this case, the penalty 1 degree lower than prisión correccional is arresto mayor, while the penalty which is 2 degrees lower than prisión correccional is arresto menor. Additionally, note that if the threat be made in writing or through a middleman, the penalty shall be imposed in its maximum period. Interesting question. Paano kung by text or by Facebook Messenger? Will that be considered in writing? Will that merit the penalty in its maximum period? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, the other penalty is arresto mayor and a fine not exceeding 100,000 pesos if the threat shall not have been made subject to a condition. In other words, if there is no extortion or any other condition demanded by the accused, ibig sabihin trip lang, nanakot lang siya at nagbanta na may masamang gagawin, then the penalty is arresto mayor and a fine of up to 100,000 pesos. Okay, now, can one act give rise to the 2 crimes of grave threats and grave coercion? The answer is yes. For example, when there is a threat to kill another without actually killing, that's grave threats. Moreover, if by reason of that threat, the other person is prevented from doing something not prohibited by law, like from entering his residence, then that's grave coercion. The illustrative case is Navea versus People, GR number 233818, September 2, 2020. Here, the accused threatened the victim while holding a knife, and as a result, the victim was not able to enter the bodega. So, going to the situation for which I was consulted, the crime committed there is grave coercion. The girlfriend was prevented from breaking up with the boyfriend by reason of a threat of exposure. It was a restraint on her free will, and that restraint was not justified. Remember, every girl has the right to say no and to say enough is enough. Alright, that's all for this video on the difference between grave coercion and grave threats. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. Please subscribe and support me and click that notification bell so that you will be notified in case I upload a new video. I'll see you in the next one. Laging tatandaan, isip ay buksan, alamin ang batas.